fairly momentous day, at least as far as the class is concerned. This is a transitionary period. We are moving from the first paper to the second. Of course, that means we are moving from the first unit to the second. Dim these a little bit. In order to illustrate, that transition, I've pulled up CourseIn for us. Now this is I kind of wonder if it'll let me just. Oh, you're not that smart, are you? Are you? Okay. The smart boards at the other campus, you can full on like. I guess this is like the dumb cousin of the smart board. Anyway, here's CourseIn. I hope you recognize it. You go to content, of course, up to now. We've been in Unit 1. There's a prompt, all the videos, the homeworks, right? It's all listed chronologically. But now, go to Unit 2. It is organized in the same fashion, okay? You have prompts up top. We have 2 this time. And then everything below, just as we did with the first unit, is organized chronologically. That includes homework, that includes any material I might want you to look at or what have you, okay? And of course, all of this is also listed chronologically in the syllabus. I think some of you are allergic to the syllabus, however, so anyway. This is what we're going to be working with for the next little bit. That means we leave Fairchild pretty much behind. We definitely leave Unit 1 behind. We just keep kind of moving this way. All right. To begin with, I guess, well, I don't know, there's not a good time to do this, so I guess I'll just do it right now. Before we leave Unit 1 behind entirely, I do have a bit of an announcement. There's no way to say it without it feeling like a bit of a trick, and maybe it is. I don't know. I apologize if it feels that way. I've only done this a handful of times in my teaching career. I do think it works out for the most part for students, and it is this. Your papers are due today. To be entirely technical, they're due now. Although I know we briefly, somebody, I think you asked last time, I was like, well, if you don't get it in right before class, definitely make sure you get it in like right after, that type of thing. So it's my assumption that no matter where you are in the turning in process concerning your papers, I hope that you're pretty far along with your papers, because what kind of life are you living otherwise? Anyway, what I decided to do, I think maybe after our last class, is to give you a bit of an extension on the first paper, just a little. So here's what it means. What it means is, you can turn in your paper whenever you want early. I mean, that's how life works. But it will now be due by midnight this Friday night. Okay? I believe today is the 16th, so that means Friday night, 11:59 p.m., 6:18 is when it will now be due. Okay? Now, again, if you, for instance, feel like you worked real hard, you got the thing in on time, great. If you are happy with what you turned in, well, then you've already turned it in. If you have not yet turned it in, you can breathe a little bit. That's always nice. But there's a third option. No matter where you are in that process, again, I started all this with, I firmly believe you've worked up something. Whatever it is, you should be pretty far along. Whatever it is, too, probably at some point in the process was a little bit under the gun, like was a little bit constrained. No matter, and I've heard it a lot from students, like, I work well under stress. No, you don't. Whatever you might think about your process when it comes to, like, you produce well under stress, that's not the same as providing good work. Those are different things. Anyway, what I'm telling you is, it's my firm belief that whatever product you've worked up right now, even if you've turned it in, there's a better than good chance if you take that product again with the next 2 days that I've given you, basically, and work on it some more, it'll be that much better. But that's an option. You don't have to take it. If you've turned it in and you want to let it ride, that's your option. If you haven't turned it in, you have till Friday. Third option, just to, again, spell it out in practical terms. If you decide that you want to take advantage of the extension and you've already turned something in, what you will have to do is let me know. Because I have to delete your original submission so that you can resubmit by the new deadline. Okay? those are your options. I give them to you now. We can talk about it at the end of class, or I guess a little bit now if you want. You got time to think about it. I will not even be able, because I go home to boys. It's crazy. This thing, I burned 3,500 calories apparently yesterday with my boys. Like it's real. So like I'm not looking at them today. I'm just not. I'll try tomorrow, you know. So you got a little bit of time to think about this if you're not sure. I don't want you to make a snap decision. Are there any questions as of right now? I saw some of you may be thinking about a question.
Have you looked at any of them so far?
No.
Okay.
They weren't due till just before class, and I know how you guys work. Come on. What would I have looked at? But no, I would, because it doesn't help me to find like the one or two that have been turned in. That's
The
not
way
good.
it came out, it kind of suggested that you maybe read a few.
No. I was thinking about this last week. I was.
Oh God, we need to give him an extension.
No. I would never make a decision like this like that quickly. I was thinking about it last week, and I was kind of leaning toward doing it. I've done it before. Like the reason I do it, I honestly believe. Again, whatever you've worked up to now, maybe you feel like it's as good as you can make it. Sometimes that is the case. What is more likely the case is you did what you had to do to get the thing done. Okay, and that's good. But now you've got that out of the way. If you allow yourself another 24, 48, whatever, you can actually go back and look at that and go, oh, that's not as good as I thought it was. Or now that I have to, like, you can make it better. That's honestly why I do. And I don't do it every semester. Summer's weird, and I just felt like 2 more days won't kill me to take that time away from me to grade, and it I think would benefit most of you just because that's how it is. But yeah, no, I haven't looked at any of the papers yet. That's really it. But again, you do not have to make the decision right now. If you want, we will have some time at the end of class today for just general questions. So if you got something that springs to mind, write it down. You know, don't forget, and we can talk about it at the end. But yeah, I wanted to, I guess, do that now. I couldn't think of a better time. We'll just do it at the beginning of class. Okay, now we can actually start talking a little bit. Most of today, apart from the announcement, is going to be about Unit 2. We're in Unit 2. Here's the prompt. I will, of course, make it a little bigger. I hope my tea's not still alive. Quite parched. All right. I think this text will be a little more fun. I think I asked you guys one of our previous classes, all of you have seen Die Hard before, yes? Awesome. You've never seen it? You're young. To be fair, this movie is almost as old as I am, so like you know, it's all good. It's an action movie. It is an 80s action movie. It came out in 1988, and it feels that way in some ways, which is good though. The poems we read, they were published in the 90s, but they were written by a guy who grew up in the 60s in Kansas. So it feels like the 60s in Kansas. That's how art is, right? It reflects the time it's about or it was created in. Anyway, this will be our source text. Die Hard, the film. I brought it in again just to show you guys. Bruce Willis, back when he had hair. Okay, I'll show the camera as well. Die Hard. There are like 5 of them now. You want the first one. There's no subtitle. Like the third one, I think, is Die Hard with a Vengeance. I honestly think the subtitle of Die Hard 2 is Die Harder. It was a more innocent time. People were stupid. But you want the original. That's our primary text. There's a secondary source I've provided, which we will talk about later, but it's on CourseDen now. Okay. And at least 2 more of your own choosing. This paper involves a bit of research. Not a ton, but a little. Okay, on your part. Length. It'll be at least 4 pages. Now, before you freak out, that's a little bit longer than the one we just did. But again, you will have a primary source, a secondary source, and at least 2 more secondary sources. You will need those 4 pages. You will need them. You have 4 sources, 4 pages. I don't think hitting the length requirement will be much of a concern this time. Okay. Percentage, 25%. That's how much your papers are worth. Format, MLA. We will talk about works cited this time in a little more detail, so be looking forward to that. Your final draft, will be due the 2nd of July. And today's the 16th, right? Right. Okay. So a little bit more time on this. It is a little bit longer. It's a little more involved. And I'll explain what I mean by that after we get through this. Sorry. So what is an informative synthesis? The best way I know how to describe it, based upon what I've heard from students, especially because these are comp classes, a lot of the students I get are either in high school or straight out of high school, so they still have a lot of that kicking around. The best way I know how to quantify it is very similar to like a research paper you might write in high school. It's not a proper research paper, that's our third paper, that's down the line. But this is what you've maybe been told is a research paper, which is this. It is almost entirely based in other people's thoughts. Okay? So I'll put it to you this way. The first paper, we're writing about Fairchild, that is you and your thoughts about a poem. And I know sometimes that's kind of tricky, that's kind of hard, I think it's good for you. That's our first paper. Second paper has different concerns. You're going to watch the movie, and we're going to talk about it a bunch, and you are going to have, hopefully, some thoughts about it. But then you got to go and engage with secondary sources. One I give you, a couple you find on your own. These folks are going to have different ideas from each other, maybe even different ideas from you. Your job in this paper is to present to me the conversation around the film. Okay? So what I mean by that is, we'll watch the movie, we'll talk about it, we'll investigate it some. But then all the papers you read will make different arguments about the movie, what it means, what it says about the time, any of that stuff. Okay, and the name of the game here is organization. You're going to organize all these different thoughts that these different people have into a paper that makes sense. You're going to present that to me at the end. Does that make a little bit of sense? The way I describe the process and the reason we have a little bit longer to do it, I handle this paper in 2 phases, okay? Phase 1 is you just have to read everything, okay? You gotta watch the movie. There's a good chance you'll end up watching it more than once, which is fine, okay? You're gonna have to read sources. You're gonna have to do some research to find some of those, but at the end of the day, you gotta read and watch stuff. That's phase 1. You just gotta get it all in here, right? Phase 2 will be writing. That will be, here's what this person thinks, oh, this person maybe disagrees, or this person offers like an addendum to that thought, and that's where you actually put the stuff together. But the next couple classes are gonna be, let's watch the movie, let's read these papers, let's get all this under our belts as like scholarly ammunition, and then we'll talk about writing. Questions so far? There's a suggested thesis down here, and again, we're not going to worry about this for probably a couple classes. I hate giving this to you now, and we'll probably talk about it later, but I just want to show it to you. When I say you're presenting the conversation to me, I really mean it. It's another way I have to describe it. It's almost like if you were in a room with 3 or 4 of your friends talking about a given subject, and then later on a friend of yours asked, hey, what were you guys talking about? How would you sum that up, right? There's probably different avenues the conversation goes down, different things get covered, but if you had to sum it up in a sentence or two, it might sound a little bit something like this. While there seems to be general agreement about this one topic, X, the topics of Y and Z provide more room for debate. Yeah? That's pretty boilerplate, but again, depending on the research you do, what does that debate look like? What does that agreement look like, right? You describe that stuff for me. Does that make sense? Kind of. Finally, I mentioned this. The name of the game here really is organization. Just taking all these different voices and making them sing together. Okay? There's 2 primary ways to do it. I only teach one of them, and I actually want to caution you against the other. The first one, and some of you, I will keep telling you not to do this, and some of you, God help you, will do it anyway. But I'm going to warn you for the first time now. It's called block format, and it works like this. Every paragraph, you just summarize each source, right? Body paragraph 1, probably Die Hard. Body paragraph 2, probably the source I gave you. And then the next 2 that you found, right? That is a way to do it. It is very difficult to pull off, and I'll explain why in a second. The way I teach it is down here. It's called alternating. Body paragraph 1, you deal with topic 1, idea 1. Oh, 2 or 3 of my sources really are invested in a discussion of this idea, whatever it is, right? That's going to be a paragraph. Paragraph 2, 2 of my sources actually really want to talk about this. That's a different paragraph. The reason I teach it this way, the whole point of this paper is to get these texts talking to each other, right? It's not impossible, but it's much more difficult when you separate them into paragraphs. You're basically pinning all your hopes on your transition game. The sentences that begin and end your paragraphs handle all of the conversation. That's difficult. But if you force 2 or 3 sources into a paragraph together, you almost have to have them talking to each other, right? For it to make sense. So I teach it this way. Some of you will just not. Some of you will do it this way. I do think this way is harder. Questions about any of that? All right, let's move on from that. What we're going to do now, I'll show you where it's at first. All right, in Unit 2, you got the prompts up here. There's another one that we'll talk about later. We're not doing that today. Just below that is actually what we're going to look at today. It's a video from a show called Last Week Tonight, the guy with John Oliver. It is, oh, it doesn't say it here. Hold it up. It's a little over 20 minutes long. It goes by kind of quick. Why are we watching this video about NCAA athletes? I like this video, and I've looked for others, because this one's actually a little bit out of date now. I've looked for other videos, but I love this one because what he's going to do in the video, over about 20 minutes, he's going to try to convince you, and he's very open with where he stands on the issue. He's going to try to convince you that college athletes should be paid. Okay? He feels like they should be paid. But that's not why I show it to you. I show it to you because he presents his side, but he consistently, I think, tries to tell you about the NCAA side too. Okay? So what we're going to get in this video is 2 different texts, 2 different arguments. College athletes should be paid. College athletes should not be paid. All the one you're worried about right now, we're going to do something with it after. But for now, I would take some notes in some kind of fashion. I'll give you a second to pull out whatever you need. But anytime you feel like he makes a point or brings up an idea for either side of the debate, college athletes should be paid because, or they should not because, I want you to jot that down some kind of way for you. At the end of all this, we're gonna do something with it. All right. This is about synthesis. This is to try to help you understand all the shit I just said at you. But yeah, we're gonna do that. I'm gonna turn this off because YouTube will flag me for showing it. All right. What I want to do now, I just want to. The way I found it most helpful to organize it is just student athletes should be paid or they should not, and just any of the ideas he gives you. And he gives you a lot, I think. I just want to get them all up on the board here. Take a couple minutes. So, whichever you like. Whichever side. What do you guys think? Yeah.
So, or getting paid because the college sports have sponsorships.
All the the advertisements, all the money they bring in. Yeah. Sure. All right. What else?
I don't feel like he argued on the other side very well. I mean, the whole.
No, he just showed it. That's what I mean. He's very clear.
A little bit, but it was
I got a
passive,
bunch of stuff.
It was like passive aggressive whenever he did show it. You know.
Yeah, he's making fun of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's 90% argued on his side.
Sure.
10% the other side. So it's hard to argue the NCAA side.
I got a bunch of stuff. I'll give you one.
It makes sense to the other side, not to Oliver.
Yeah. But he shows it.
And their students before being
Specifically, like Mark Emmert even says, they're students. Like he doubles down on that word, right? We get a bunch of stuff like that.
Get into degree.
Education, right? For sure. What else? Again, either side. We just want it all up on the board here.
they're not employees, or like the NCAA.
Yeah, it's kind of an offshoot of this, but yeah, the idea that they're amateurs, right? That's sort of part and parcel of student athlete and all that stuff. They're amateurs, they're not pros. Yeah. What else?
You have to sign a contract. I'm not sure which side they
I would put it on both because on this side, the rules, right? They do sign it. They agree to all these rules, right? They do that. Oliver makes fun of it very quickly, but he mentions that the book is over 400 pages long, and it's kind of, I mean, every time your phone updates and you have to like click the yeah, you read all that. No, he's kind of pointing out like they're agreeing to a bunch of shit they don't really have very little idea what they're agreeing to. So that would go on this side as well in a different way. Okay. What else?
They have a tough schedule.
Yeah, Richard Sherman really spells it out. That if they are student athletes, and if this does come first, it kind of, when he spells it out the way it didn't sound so much like student is really what's important there, right? For sure. He went to Stanford as well, which is like a big, I mean, supposedly like they're pretty into academics over there. All right.
I think he got a master's.
He's a pretty smart guy. Although I've met some idiots with some masters, just to be honest with you. But anyway. What else? I have a master's, for God's sake.
I found it interesting that one coach got in trouble for feeding his player.
Yeah, I summed that up over here with like Dan Patrick also tells a story about the coach getting, or maybe that's what you're talking about. The kid, one of his parents dies,
Yeah.
and before he, yeah, man, you're like, you'll hear stories every couple years about just some really asinine, like, really, like maybe this breaks a rule, but couldn't somebody at some point go, we'll just let this one, right? But no, they, yeah. Shabazz Napier too, the kid that just won the NCAA tourney, is getting interviewed, and he's like, "There's some nights I'm starving. There's some nights I don't have enough food." You'll hear stories like that where you're like, "Damn, man, like, got to figure something out for that, right?" Like,
I was really confused. If
Yeah.
they're on a scholarship,
yeah,
don't they get food allowance?
very, very recently. That's part of the thing that's out of date. This is from a couple years ago, but you could argue, I mean, outside of the video, that maybe stuff like this helped. But no, there's another famous story about a guy named Arian Foster who played for Tennessee in college, and then he went to the Houston Texans. Once he was in the league for a bunch of years, he told a story about once a month, an assistant coach would come by his house with like a big garbage bag full of frozen burritos, and that's how he lived, because he had no money. I mean, you think about the schedule, it's like, I don't see a job fitting in there, right? So if you're only getting your scholarship and I suppose a place to live, you do need more money, like to, especially these students, like the calories they got to be burning, man. They need food. So up until the past couple of years, food apparently was like a very real concern that nobody really talked about. Yeah.
I'm assuming that's on partial scholarships.
Yeah.
Because the full rides, even back then, because whenever I went,
Yeah. And I don't know enough about that, but it may not be enough for some people, you know. I don't know. I've never been a top level athlete, like working
partial
out all day.
scholarships were the majority.
Yeah, I can see that as well.
Like I got partial scholarships for baseball, but
Yeah.
it didn't pay for my room and food.
Yeah, and you're kind of left to figure that out, right?
Right.
Yeah. All right. What else we got? There's a couple more I think on either side. We're almost done with this part.
Medical.
Oh shit. Here and then here. I think. What's that?
Medical. For instance, they can lose that scholarship in the matter of seconds if they get hurt, and then they're left to defend those medical bills as well.
Yeah, they give you that kid from Oklahoma. There toward the end, he got scholarship offers in 9th grade. Wow. And then he gets hurt as a freshman, and it's like, whew. Jesus. What'd you say, man?
That was it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that one's rough. That is particularly heartless. And it was only a couple years ago. There was this because I'll have student athletes in class sometimes. This girl raised her hand. She's on the soccer team. She's like, "Yeah, if we get hurt, we could lose our scholarship." Damn.
I don't see how that's legal.
I don't either. Well, Oliver makes the point that it has something to do with this. They're not considered employees, so it's different legally.
But if they're considered student athletes, the word student comes first.
But if you get hurt on campus, I mean, and I guess you had a scholarship, I guess there's legal precedent for taking that. I'm not saying it should be that way. Don't get it twisted. But yeah, that one in particular is pretty rough. What else we got? Ooh, I like this one. I'll put this one up. Sometimes you get one that Oliver will directly answer. This idea of mentorship, coaches, head coaches or assistant, all the people that are involved in the building, right? When you come into school as a student athlete or otherwise, you're 18, 19, 20, you're a kid. You people to look up to, and then he gives you these examples. Yeah. And look, those are hyperbolic. Not every coach is necessarily like that. I grew up playing football. My dad was a coach. He was like that. Every coach I ever ran into pretty much was like that on some level. So this side would say, just to that point directly, I'm not sure about the mentorship thing. I'm not sure if that's their role. What else? Anything else?
Yeah, they remarkable opportunities is what
What do you mean?
the head of the NCAA
Yeah.
said. Not only we give education and everything, we give them remarkable opportunities.
What do you think he means by that?
Afterwards?
Like going pro?
No, not going pro. After college, after you get
You talking about-
college, after you get a diploma.
Oh, okay,
It's
right.
open to-
Yeah.
Wide open.
Yeah. I mean, as an offshoot here, yeah, it's like,
He expanded on the education.
yeah, I'm just trying to think of how to sum that up for this. Yeah, opportunities, maybe we could, yeah. But then as an offshoot of that, I would say for some, the question of going pro. Simply, so again, we can put on the other side. Oliver gives you those percentages, which are obviously very low. Because I'm sure you have, I can even imagine the thousands and thousands of kids that play college athletics every year. And then, I don't know if you guys watch any of the drafts. I do, because I'm a loser. Might be a couple hundred get drafted every year, so
It's less than 2% go pro.
yeah, that's pretty slim. Okay. Anything else? One or two more I got. I guess I'll go ahead and put them up there. Mark Emmert also makes the point that schools aren't making money doing this. And then, of course, again, this side would say that's not always true. I told you guys at the beginning of this class, I went to Alabama. And it was a running joke. Like, you would turn a corner on campus and they're putting up a new building or remodeling another one. And there's money flowing in that place, not just from athletics, but you also walk into the stadium and it's like, something paid for this. This didn't come out of like charity. This is an operation. So yeah, they kind of make the point that isn't necessarily true either, the nonprofit.
Something to add to this,
Yeah.
possibly. He talks about where they spend money to make it look like they don't.
That's basically that, yeah.
So in the military, we have a defense budget, and as the money flows down, we get allotted so much money. If we don't spend that money within.
Oh, you don't get to keep it?
The next year, we won't get that much. Let's say if we got $1.2 million,
That's a really screwed up way to do anything.
it 100% is. But if we only spend $900,000,
Yeah.
you know, other people wanna try to save government funds.
Yeah, but that,
You lose that money.
yeah,
And so toward the end of the year, we spent some amounts of money
just to get rid of it.
just to get rid of it.
Yeah.
That way we get that money next year.
Well, it's similar operation here, but it's to, because at the end of the day, whatever the motivation, your bottom line has to basically read zero, right?
Right.
That's what you're trying. Yeah.
So they're wasting money.
Yeah, but it's a goofy way to do anything. Okay. Does anybody have anything else? This is pretty good. We got most things. Probably leaving something out. I got one of this side. It's kind of an offshoot of that, but they do it in another way. I know it's all the way here at the bottom. None of you can see it, but they also call into question the education that student athletes sometimes get. Not just with Richard Sherman with the schedule, but those kids talking about Swahili class they took, or the woman who talks about paper classes, which just to make sure you understand, those were classes only on paper. That was not a class. That was just, let's give these kids some good grades so they're academically eligible to play. So that kind of, okay. Now all of this, all that we've done up to now, just to bring it back to the paper, that's what this is about. I want you to think about these two sides as two different texts, okay? This side is clearly Oliver. And again, I told you at the top, he's pretty transparent with what side he's on. He's over here, okay? Mark Emmert, who represents the NCAA, is over here. And these are his points, okay? There are going to be obvious disagreements, okay? For instance, education and education, right? Like those obviously speak to each other. But what I want to do, and you'll see it after a couple minutes, I want to the best of our ability, try to put these two sides into conversation with each other. How do they speak to one another across this line? Okay? And we can start with an easy one, since I just gave it to you. This side says, well, they get paid in an education, right? And of course, this side is like, not always. Not so much always. Okay. Can we attach, now that we've gone from here to here, can we attach this questionable education to anything else on the board, on either side? Does this notion that they're not always getting educated, that's not always the main concern, does that attach to anything else on the board?
I would say going pro,
Why?
because if they don't make going pro, they're gonna rely on a real life job. And if
So they better hope they got an education. Okay. So you're saying, well, here, but then also by necessity here. It's kind of answering that, like, not only is that not likely, but for all those people that it doesn't happen for, they're going to have to rely on the thing that we just said isn't always great. Sure. Two, man, for those out there in the video as well, I promise I'm not trying to shit on anybody's major, but so many times we would know we had a student athlete before, because somebody always tells you, because you got to like report their grades and stuff. So many times you'd already know based on their major. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's some like just. I'm sure people do great things with every major, but you'll see someone when you go, okay, I wish you the best, man. I hope that works out for you. Like, but again, it's like, is that what they're here to do? I don't know. Good. Can we, and we may not be able to, but can we move that conversation now anywhere from this question of going pro and what it might mean if you don't? Can we take that anywhere else? Okay. Let's try another one on. That's one. I'll put a 1 right here. We're going to talk about these in a second. So we'll start from 0 now. Can you get anything over here to talk to anything over here?
Rules,
Which one?
both sides.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And again, they pretty clearly, you agree to all these rules, and this side says, I mean, yeah, but nobody's reading those. You don't know what you're agreeing to. Okay. Can we go anywhere from either one of these?
human needs.
What about it? Like, how do you get there?
Like in the video, he was talking about students not being able to pay bills, pay for food, and the rules clearly state you can't do that.
Okay. So we can go from either one, actually. I guess we'll just start in the middle. Okay, yeah. You're not allowed, according to those rules, to, and you agreed to not be allowed to, like, get help from your coaches or whomever. Yeah. And if you do, you better do it on the sly or so nobody knows. It's like illicit. Yeah. Can we get anywhere else from human needs? And mostly it seems like we're talking about food here. Can we get anywhere else?
I think mentors as well.
From human needs? Okay. How are you getting there?
So not even just about food, but life skills in general. If you're spending your whole time playing a sport, you're probably not learning many life skills as well. And so you might be leaning on those coaches for more life skills than anything.
And as it turns out, and look, to be fair to the coaches, they get kind of spun that way. And maybe some of them do. Look, I'm a pretty big Nick Saban fan. I went to Alabama. I believe a lot of what he says about like giving a shit about the kids and like trying to, you know, but that could be for show. And I'll say this, even if it's not everybody's like that. You know, that's not their job. A coach's job is to win. That's their job. The ones that get paid bank, they don't get paid bank because they're like father figures. No, they get paid because they like win titles. You know, like that. That's why they get paid. So it's kind of, but yeah. So that, what we just did, just to be clear, I'm gonna put a 2 here. We built, and there's other places we could go. We started to build 2 different body paragraphs, right? Just out loud. Obviously, it would be more involved if you're writing, but we went in the first one from you get paid in education to, but what's that education really look like? Let's talk about that for a second, right? That's what this side would say. And then from there, I gotta follow my lines now. Oh God, okay. Then we went to, I think you made the point, this question of going pro. Some people will, but for the most part, you don't. And at that point, now you're out of school. Man, I hope you got an education. I hope you got something. Because otherwise, you're in your early 20s and you're just, I'm really good at the sport, no one will pay me for now. Right? That'd be a body paragraph. We got the 2 texts talking. And how did we do it? We used ideas. We found an easy connection. And you look for other connections, and all of a sudden the conversation develops. This is just like talking to somebody. If you've ever met someone and you try to make small talk, I like to make fun of my wife because she's bad at it. She doesn't like talking to people. She's bad at small talk. If someone approaches her in public, she will almost always, unintentionally, just shut down the conversation because she doesn't throw out sort of latch points, right? That you can spin off into other things. She shuts it down. She's like, oh, okay. Like somebody complimented on her hair and asked her about it. And when I was with her the other day, and she just shut it down. It's like, okay, yeah, I dye it. And just, that was it. But you guys, importantly, again, you found another place and you keep it moving. That builds the conversation. That's one paragraph. The other one, we started with rules. And then, of course, rules, man, it's not as cut and dry as that, right? And you point out, well, the rules say your human needs may not get met all the time. It's in the rules. And from there, we went from human needs, and you kind of broaden that a little bit. And I think it's, again, especially when you're 18, 19, 20, you have physical needs, but you also have developmental needs. Mentor would help with that. And this side is like, well, how much help are you getting there, really? Sure. Another thing I would add, we may have room in a body paragraph. The rules, we've already covered this, also state, if you get hurt, sorry. Oh well. That's what the rules say. We don't have to help you if it's like career ending. We could just say deuces. Yeah, for sure. And I would also actually lump that under human needs as well. If you're hurt, God knows you need help. Yeah. That's another body paragraph. Time. Let's do one more. And I know my lines are crazy. I know that. Can we find one more connection? We try to build one more body paragraph. Try to get out of your way there. Something we haven't used yet.
Nonprofit, profit.
Okay. And again, we start with that like really solid connection. They claim nonprofit, and they're like, well, at the end of the day, it certainly looks like a nonprofit. Although I don't know many nonprofits where people are getting like $7 million plus. It doesn't. Something about that doesn't seem right, you know. Okay. Can we go anywhere from there? This question of profit, nonprofit. Can we connect it to anything else?
Amateurs, advertisers.
Okay. Let's start with advertisers. I think that would be easier. Why do you say that?
So anyone who's a non-profit should not be making money off of like outside sources.
It feels straight. Again, it doesn't square, right? You're saying you're saying you're a nonprofit, but you're eschewing the fact that you're not making money. You are absolutely making money. And for the bigger schools, you're making a ton. This is fun. During the, I'm not going to get the number right, but I read an article during the pandemic because no one could go to games. Tuscaloosa, the city of Tuscaloosa, which is where Alabama's at, because they depend upon people coming in town for games. It's bananas, by the way. It's a lot of people. You don't go anywhere. You want to go out tonight? No. Like, it's not. Anyway, they were set to lose, and I can't remember the number, by, I want to say it was double digits, like millions of dollars a week on all the people not coming. Like it, and that's the town. That's not even the school, with people buying tickets and swag and all that. Like, then you add advertisers. So you're nonprofit at the end, but there are profits. There are absolutely profits, for sure, for sure. And then you guys said amateur. How are we gonna get there? What was that?
Because they're not getting paid.
With all that money, and that.
Because they're amateurs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess the connection there is, again, Mark Emmert's kind of saying they have to remain amateurs if for no other reason, and he gives others, but if for no other reason than necessity. These are nonprofits. They couldn't function that way, paying all these folks. Sure. All right, that's 3 in note form, in crazy Zodiac Killer note form, body paragraphs, right? And I'll let you on a break after this, but I just want to underscore how we did it. Through ideas, okay? We started with pretty easy, pretty obvious connections. That's how brains work. And then you just branch out some. What does that relate to? What else does that speak to? Does that bring any other voices or any other ideas into this part of the conversation? It almost always absolutely does. And you just build it organically like that. Okay? And understand this too. For your papers, you will have Die Hard as a text. You will have the text I give you. And then you will have 2 more that you will find. So you will have more to deal with. Okay? And you might connect something here to here, but then you come back to this one, and then you go all the way to like, there's going to be connections all over the place. You will not struggle, I think, for opportunities like this. But that's also why I will remind you constantly, organization is going to be your primary concern with this paper. Not just how do I make connections, how do I make them make sense so that it doesn't look like this, all these lines when you're writing, right? Questions about any of that? Okay. We'll take a break. We'll come back.